Welcome to this week's episode of Livewire TV with me, your host Rohini from Livewire Media. Each week, I bring you guys an incredible guest that's going to take your business and even your mindset to a whole new level by just sharing fresh perspectives, inspiring stories, and little nuggets of wisdom that are just going to make a huge difference for you guys. So, Livewire TV is a part of Livewire Media where we do corporate videography and video marketing. Now, this week, I've got a really juicy guest for you guys. So even if you don't have a vegan organization, totally cool. What we're going to be talking about in this show still applies to you. So Mitali, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Mitali is all about helping organizations, particularly vegan organizations, to get themselves on the map. She's a multi-talented person, worked with numerous companies. Her accolades just go on and on and on. And I've been following her for a while, so I know that she knows her stuff. She basically helps you to get on the map multiple different ways. Ultimately, it comes down to PR. So, Mitali, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Rohini. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well. I'm excited to be here.
So, tell us more about your business and like how you got onto your entrepreneurial journey.
Oh gosh, well, we don't have that long, to be honest. I could be here for hours if I told you a full journey. So I'm a former journalist, and I've been a copywriter since 2013. And then I fell into ghostwriting. I never thought of writing a book. I was happy writing email marketing and sales pages and landing pages and articles and all these kinds of things for my clients. And then one of my clients asked me if I would write a book for him. I remember thinking, oh, hell, I've never done one of those before. But I was just honest with him and said, well, as you know, I've never written one before. So as long as you don't give me a crazy deadline, a book done in 2 months or something crazy like that, as long as you have patience, then I will do my best for you. And he was wonderful. He said, I have zero deadline. You can take as long as you want. I just know I want to write a book, but I don't have the time and patience to do it myself. And you've been writing for me for over 2 years now, so I trust you. So you take as much time as you want. It took me around about 17 months to write that book because obviously it was my first book. I had no recipe, no structure, no strategy. I was just going into it green. And I was picking up, I was, listening to as many YouTube videos on how to do it and reading loads of blog posts. But this is a problem, Rohini. Everyone's a flipping expert online. That's the thing. You can drown with the amount of information that's out there on any subject you look at. And the trick is trying to find who's the real deal and who isn't. So there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of goose chases, a lot of things that I did wrong, which is why it took me 17 months to do. And then that book did incredibly well for my client. It became a bestseller in the US. So then he started to tell, entrepreneurs tend to hang around entrepreneurs. So he started to tell everyone that he knew, and then they wanted a book. So over the course of about 4 years, I ended up writing 7 books. The last book I wrote in 2018, the cusp of 2018 to 2019. And that book took me just over 6 weeks to write. So the sheer difference from 17 months to 6 weeks, and the book it didn't lack the quality, it wasn't because I did it in 6 weeks. Somehow it was less than the first book. In fact, it was arguably better than the first book because I was now a better writer. It was my 7th attempt. And to that point, I realized I've got a structure, or I call it a recipe, because in my head, I'm not very good at cooking, by the way, Rohini. I don't know why I think of it as a recipe, but in my head,
it's like as well. So
I'm just not good at it. I'm really, really not good at it. I've got a few staples and that's about it. But in my head, I think of it as a recipe. When you see a beautiful meal in front of you without the steps beforehand, you kind of look at it and go, I can never do that. I couldn't put that together. But if someone just lays out the exact steps you need to do in the right order, and that's the key thing, it's not just the right steps, it's the right steps in the right order. If someone lays that out to you, then it's amazing what you can achieve. And you can achieve those dishes that you thought were absolutely impossible and you would never be able to cook. Well, it's the same thing with a book. And that's when I decided, why don't I teach people my structure, or my recipe, as I call it? And then that way I can help more people, because there's only so many books I can write in a year. But if I teach people to write their own books, put it this way, I've now published 16 authors in just the last couple of years. There's no way I would have written 16 books myself in less than 2 years. That just wouldn't have happened. You know, I want to have a life as well. But yeah, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, talk to us about the power of writing a book then, for publicity's sake.
I think I touched on this a little bit just before, Rohini, kind of inadvertently.
Yeah.
The thing with the online world is I love it. You know, I love social media. I love all of that. The problem, it's a double-edged sword. I love the egalitarian aspect of the online world. You know, anybody can just stick a video up, or, you know, write a post. It's wonderful how egalitarian it is, but it is a double-edged sword. There is a lot of people out there who say they can do a lot of marvelous things. For example, if you're, let's say you're an executive coach, well, guess what? All executive coaches have got social media. All executive coaches have a website. All executive coaches are blogging and writing articles. There's nothing to really differentiate.
On that note, Mitali, what would be your top tips for standing out in a really saturated market?
Write a book. Because
Okay.
I used to, Rohini, what I used to do before the pandemic, and things are picking up again now, before the pandemic, when I used to do in-person talks in front of people, I would do this thing where I would get people to all stand up in the room, and I'll get people to sit down depending on what they've got in their business. So things like, you know, websites, business cards, blog posts. And most people will, you know, stay standing up when it comes to all the other things. In other words, most people have everything else, but as soon as you say who doesn't have a book, they all sit down, or you may have one or two people. That's a difference, and it's a very visual way to show how much you stick out like a sore thumb in the best possible way when you become an author.
Guys, let me know in the comments if you've written a book yourself, or if you're thinking about writing a book. I would love to know. So you predominantly help people to essentially get their business on the map by helping them to create epic videos that just sell, right? But I'm sure that comes with challenges.
It challenges, you mean for the actual author themselves?
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for any author or would-be author is the imposter syndrome that happens. It's something I have to coach a lot of my students through, and it's quite incredible. I'm in touch with very intelligent, very astute people who really do know what they're doing. But as soon as at the point that they want to write a book is when they suddenly think, I'm not good enough. And that is probably the biggest challenge. And I always say, you know, if not you, then who else? You know, someone else is going to end up writing the book, and they're not necessarily going to be better at what you do than you do. You know what you do really well, and you've got happy clients. So you are an expert, and therefore that makes you good enough to write a book. So I would say that is the biggest challenge. Once the book comes out, as long as that person is proud of the book and they leverage the book, then things become very easy for you. I'll use myself as an example, Roni. Last year, I was invited onto 78 podcasts in the space of, well, from May to the end of the year. And I was also asked to speak in front of 500 people in September.
Wow.
I'm somebody who was, before that, had never done podcasts, never spoken in front of people. There's a reason why people choose to be a ghostwriter or a copywriter. We're not comfortable in front of people. We like being in the backstage. That's where we live, and we like other people to take the limelight, and we just want to get on with our work and be paid very well for it, and that's all we want to do. So this was a completely new territory for me. There is literally no way, if I wasn't an author myself, there's literally no way I would have secured that many podcasts, and I certainly wouldn't have been asked to speak in front of that many people when I had zero stage experience before that. But as soon as people know that I'm an author, it's like a shortcut that happens in a lot of people's brains. They just kind of go, that person must know what what they're doing. Whether they do or not, it's, it really is irrelevant. It's, it's almost a case of fake it till you make it. I know when I got up on that stage, I still don't remember that. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember that speech. Apparently it was really, really good. I got some amazing feedback, but I was so scared. I just went up and I started speaking and then I blanked out. I don't remember any of it. That's how wet behind the ears I was. Now, if I wasn't an author, I know the organizers would never have taken such a gamble on me. They would have said, they would have wanted some proof. They would have said, well, who have you spoken with before? Have you got any show reels? Have you got any images of you speaking? I didn't have any of that. But I just said, well, I'm an author of this book and it was a bestseller. That was enough for them. It just opens doors for you when you become an author. And I'm proof of that. And my students as well are all proof of that.
So you mentioned becoming a bestseller, and I know that you help businesses in so many ways to become a bestseller. You make it look so easy.
Oh gosh. Well, put it this way, someone like me will make it as easy as possible for you, because that's my role. If I'm not doing that, then I'm failing as a book consultant. So my role is to demystify the whole process for you, to give you actionable steps. So instead of being overwhelmed with a lot of different things, like I said before, it's like a recipe, where I tell you, this is step 1, then this is step 2, then this is step 3. And if you just concentrate on putting one foot in front of the other, instead of just looking at the summit, which looks very, very scary when you're trying to climb a mountain, for example, instead of you just concentrate on just putting one foot in front of the other, you'll be amazed how quickly you get to the summit. So that's my job. Is it easy? I'm not going to lie, Rohini. It's not a walk in the park. But I always say, be careful what you wish for. Never, ever wish for books to be completely easy. The reason why is if books become so easy that everybody can do them, guess what? Everyone will start doing them. And then you lose that point of differentiation. You lose that respect. Think about it. If everybody has books, then why would I have secured 78 podcasts last year? Because I would assume any person who approaches these podcast hosts will say, I'm also the author of such and such book, so you lose your point of differentiation. I think you're a little bit younger than me, Rohini. I don't know if you remember, but I remember a time when, the internet was just burgeoning. This is sort of like late 90s,
I remember that.
early 20s. And you can just and you can literally stick up the ugliest website and it would still just convert and get you leads and sales because there was hardly any websites there. And then everyone jumped on the bandwagon. And now it's sort of like everyone just needs to have a website. I always say you don't want books to go down the same route as websites. I always worry whenever you see these adverts and you can write a book in a weekend. And I'm like, well, first of all, how good is it? Sorry?
So you can, but is it going to be good?
Well, that's what I mean. You could, exactly. They never say a good book, do they? You can write a book. You can write a book in a day if you want it, but is it good enough? And secondly, if it was that easy to put out a quality book, and I'm talking the kind of book that gets you the kind of respect where people go, yeah, I'd like you to speak at my summit. I'd like you to speak at my conference. I'd like you to come onto my podcast show. If everybody can do that, then you lose your point of differentiation. So I always say, someone like me will make it as easy as possible for you, but still expect it to take energy and to take time. But that's a good thing, because if you commit to doing that, you're doing what most of your competitors will not do. All of your competitors have websites, they have business cards, they have social media, they have all the things that you do. If you become an author, you now have something that they don't have, and that's what makes you different.
Oh, I like that. Putting the power back in your hands.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. People just want the next best thing, don't they? It's like that. I guess it's kind of like shiny penny syndrome. They want people that are just different but edgy and cool in a new kind of way, right?
It's true. And you also have to remember, the more every year that goes by, we become even more overwhelmed, and there's just so much happening online. And I always say, there's a lot of people, a lot of business owners, I was there myself in the past, where you want attention. So, and you're doing everything that you think you could do. You're on social media, you're blogging, you're doing all these things that people tell you that, you know, you should do to get visibility. And then you're thinking, why am I not getting the leads? Why am I not getting the traffic to my website? Why am I not getting the likes and the comments on my social media posts? Why isn't it happening? Because you're thinking from your point of view. And you have to remember, everybody else is just as time pressed as you are, especially summit organizers and podcast hosts and all these people, and, you know, the press, the media. They're pressed for time just like you. And they don't really have the time to be looking at all these businesses and saying, well, which one is the best one that we need to feature for whatever it is that we're doing. Whereas you come in with, well, I'm an author, suddenly they go, okay, well, that's a shortcut. Again, like I said, it's not always, it doesn't even matter whether it's valid or not. I feel that I've done so well in such a short space of time because I'm thinking not from my own shoes, but I'm thinking from the other person's shoes. And I'm just thinking, what does a podcast host, for example, what do they want? Well, the first thing that they want is they want an engaging guest. But the big thing they want is a very knowledgeable guest who can talk about a specific subject matter. And that's what, you know, that's what summit organizers want. That's what the press want. You know, these people don't want egg on their face. I should have a vegan version of that, but I don't know what the vegan phrase of it, but you know what I mean. But
do you have any questions around book writing for Mitali and how you can leverage the power of books for your own business? Even if you're just crazy busy, drop them in the comment section below. Drop your queries, concerns, etc. Drop them in the comment section below, even if you're watching the replay, because we will be following up on questions. Mitali, I think the question on a lot of people's minds is it time consuming to do? Is it time consuming to actually write your own book? Can I do it in my very already busy lifestyle?
What I do, my specific way that I teach and how someone writes a book is we map out your entire book before you write it. That's the key. I mean, if there was a big takeaway from this, when anyone listening to this, is don't plan and write your book at the same time. That's what a lot of people are doing. What they're doing is they have a rough idea of what their book's going to be about. They tend to map out their chapters. They have an idea of what's going to be in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then off they go. And then they wonder why they've gone off on a tangent, or, you know, they're now in chapter 3, but now they're mentioning something that should have been mentioned in chapter 1, but they didn't mention it. So now they need to go back and add bits on. And that's what happens. What my students do is they actually mind map their entire book out before they even start writing a single word. And just to give you an idea, my students will create mind maps where they have at least 350 points on the mind map. That's, I won't accept, I would say 300 is the bare minimum. Anything under 300, I send them back, because I just say, no, you haven't thought about it enough. There's not enough here. You need to actually think about it more, about what else needs to go in your book and where in your book it needs to go. So it makes sense. It makes sequential sense. Amazing. So they do that. When you mind map your book to that level, what then happens is when it comes to the writing side of it, it almost starts to write itself. My students can even have literally 15 to 20 minutes downtime between clients, and they could be getting on with writing their book. Now, think about the traditional way of writing a book, which is planning and writing at the same time. 20 minutes is just dead time. There's literally, by the time you've figured out where you are in your book, it's time to now come out of it that time. So literally, that's why traditionally when people write a book, what they tend to do is they need to assign usually a day a week where they just, that is their writing day. I hear people say that, oh, Friday is my writing day, or Saturday mornings is my writing day, and I spend several hours writing my book. You don't, and that is why people put off writing a book, because even their Saturdays are either they're busy with their business, or that's a time when they're spending time with their kids and their family, and they just don't have time to write a book. Whereas how I teach it, my students can literally be getting on with their book, even with 15, 20 minutes downtime between clients or appointments.
Where can people connect with you to find out more about your services?
The best place to find me at the moment is on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. It's my favorite social media. I am actually rebranding as the vegan publisher at the moment. So I'm very, very excited. It does mean my websites at the moment are still being built. But you will be able to find me in a few weeks' time under theveganpublisher.com. But I'm not available yet. The best place to contact me is on LinkedIn at the moment.
Amazing, amazing. And I'm assuming it's just your name as it is in your handle.
Oh yes, you'll find me. There's only one Mitali Deypurkaystha in the world. I've checked.
Amazing. Mitali, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And guys, as always, if you have any questions for Mitali, even on the replay, let me know in the comment section and we will be following up with you. And if you have found value in this, do tag a person in it that you think would really benefit from this, or share it with them, because you never know how this content is actually going to help them to progress in their life. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking and commenting. And do join us next Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT time for another awesome conversation. Have an awesome week, guys. Bye.